Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. We're going to talk all about copywriting, email marketing, sending some badass emails, making some sales, getting some leads, all of that good stuff. But before we get into that, a lot of the people that are regular listeners to the show will know you by name because I mentioned you quite a lot in my emails and stuff like that about various different conversations that we've had, but they might not know your business, what you do, and kind of a bit about your background. So give us the condensed version of kind of what you do now in the copywriting and marketing space.
Yeah, so what I predominantly do for my clients is I work a lot of e-commerce brands and help them with it's called like retention marketing in the e-commerce world, but most of the time that means email marketing. But it's also just managing and monetizing and maximizing the results from your customer database. So not only email, but also SMS and direct mail, and just trying to, make as much money as you can from that email list that you built up. It's kind of weird though, because like I do that, but I've also built a lot of authority and experience selling digital products just because I have a digital product business myself. And, have also worked with people like Jeff Walker, John Assaraf, a number of other, higher profile digital product, info product people. So I'm kind of playing hokey pokey a little bit with one foot in each world, but it definitely gives me some unique perspectives. And the thing that I like doing is just helping people make money from their email lists. If I could put it as simply as possible, because it's easy, it's fun, and I think your list is the greatest asset you have in your business. I think if you look at people who have, some of these people will have enormous social followings, but that doesn't always translate to money. And you know that with the stuff that you teach, like it's more about the quality of the content and the quality of the audience. It's not really always about the number, but it's about the dynamic and the relationship that you have with those people. So I just try to help people get outsized results with everything they do when it comes to database marketing.
Perfect. And like you say, social media following views don't translate to money in the bank, because if people remember that a view on Instagram is 1 millisecond, which is a hundredth of a blink of an eye, that counts as a view. So that does not mean anyone's paying any attention to what you do. So like you say, it's the quality of that interaction and the content and the stuff that makes the difference. So for you then, like, I guess like there's been an evolution of your marketing skills as you kind of run your own business, you work with other people. So kind of how did you get into the copywriting side of things and start to develop that specific skill for writing emails that sell stuff?
Yeah, so I started, I used to be a school teacher, and I started just doing this in my spare time. And I started like at the bottom of the ladder, like everyone else, and just taking any gig that I can get. And what I realized was that if I could do email jobs, it was like a quick turnaround to, like, when you have to write a long form sales page, I mean, or a VSL or something, like, it's tough. It's a big project. It could be 5, 10, 15, 20,000 words. And like, in my mind, I was always like, well, it's a lot. I felt like it was a lot easier to screw up 10,000 words than it was to screw up like 500 words. You know what I mean? So I was like, if I get good at the email stuff, I'll get more reps, because to get to writing 10 VSLs, that might take you a year to do that or 6 months to do that. But to write 10 emails or 100 emails, you could probably do that in a couple months. So I viewed it as like the learning cycle would be quicker. And I just started writing for people and, all different kinds of niches, and just cutting my teeth by doing it as much as I can. And like, even back in 2016, I started my email list, and like I had 55 subscribers. Not when I started. I mean, I clawed my way to 55 subscribers and was there for probably at least 6 months, and then started gradually clawing my way up to like 100, 150, 200. So I started doing it because I knew I always wanted to have my list. I knew I wanted to be really, really good at it. So I said, I need to do this every single day. So whether I had a client or not, I was like, I'm going to practice it on my own, even when no one's listening. And like, it sucks to do that because there's no like financial payoff or no immediate financial payoff. But oftentimes that's what you have to do when you're starting out, is like, you got to get the car moving before you can steer it in the right direction.
For sure. And so like we want to delve into some like email stuff. And I surveyed a bunch of people, and well, I asked people if they've got any questions about emails and stuff like that. And a few of the kind of like the main questions came back. So I was kind of gonna throw these questions at you and see what your kind of like take on all this sort of stuff is. So let's start with lists. You just mentioned you started with going 0 to 55 subscribers and that being a bit of a slog. Knowing what you know now, having worked with multiple businesses and helping them be successful with their lists, when someone comes to you and wants to start growing an email list, what are kind of like the first things that you start to say, right, okay, this is the nuts and bolts of how we're going to start to grow a list of the right people?
So, it always differs a little bit industry to industry, but I think the thing that the common thread through all of them is like, what is the end goal? Like, what does the front end of the business look like, and what do you want the back end look like? Because if we know what the back end looks like what's the highest, most profitable, biggest, most important thing we want to sell, that usually instructs your front end, whether it's a front end offer or front end lead magnet. And then that also instructs the content, the type of acquisition strategies you're going to use. So, like for an e-commerce company, I'm like, we need to make this work with ads because, if we can't make it work with ads, I mean, there are brands out there who do make it work with organic content or SEO, but I think at least the ones that I work with the most, they've like figured out acquisition with paid traffic, right? For people in our space who are doing more digital stuff, or if you're a coach or consultant or agency or service provider or freelancer or whatever, it's probably going to be content, at least at the beginning, until you can build up enough cash to start running ads. So what I always think is like, well, what is the end goal? Because you could build a list fairly easily. I mean, there's a million different ways to go about getting subscribers, but it doesn't always mean they're going to translate into money. So if we know, like, I want to do one-on-one coaching, or I have a product a coaching program that I run 3 times a year, and it's like a launch model, or if it's like I have a print newsletter, you have a newsletter, right? Like those are all going to be, different. If we put different bait on the hook, we're going to catch different types of fish, right? So the first thing we
Mhm.
need to do is identify what kind of fish do we want to catch, because otherwise nothing else really matters, right? So, and this is the part that like no one ever wants to do, because it's like you've heard it a million times, it's boring. You're like, do I really have to sit down and like think through my avatar? It's like, yes, you do, because otherwise you might build a list full of people who you know, who just aren't going to buy anything or who aren't right for the offer. So that's always the first thing I do. And then after that, I look at like, what are your strengths? Like some people are awesome on video. Like I think you're great on video. I love your stuff. I don't feel as natural on video. Like I'm sure I could if I really committed to it,
Mhm.
right? Because I'm confident that I could figure it out. But I love the written word, and like I feel like that's where my greatest strength. That's like I might be able to get to like zone of excellence with video, but zone of genius for me, that's writing. So that's why I naturally gravitate more towards X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And I've been able to really double down there and then repurpose stuff to other platforms. But most of the growth for me has been on that platform. Other people, it might be LinkedIn for a number of reasons. It might be Instagram, it might be even Facebook. People are still making it work, or it might be YouTube. And the thing is, like everything works. It's just like what is going to work best for you. So like, what is going to be fun? What's going to be sustainable, right? Because if it's not sustainable, if you can only do it for 2 months and you get burnt out, your list isn't going to keep growing. It needs to be something that like energizes you, that you can continue to do over time, and something that kind of plays to your strengths. So like I love just bullshitting on Twitter. Like when I'm rocking my son to sleep, like I'll have to wait, 20, 30 minutes for him to like make sure he's out, before I put him down. So I'll just be bullshitting on my phone. I'll be, messing around, shit posting. I'll be like, responding to people, making jokes and stuff. I'm like,
Mhm.
for me, that works. Not everyone's like that, and that's okay. You don't have to be like that to grow, but some other people might be have an awesome like presence on video for long form YouTube stuff, and like whatever it is that you're good at, that's where you're gonna double down.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And I guess like what you're saying about the list, and you could just grow a list of anybody fairly easily, is a lot like followers. You can get a ton of views and a ton of reach and a ton of followers by just following a few random trends and dancing a certain way on a video or something like that. But actually, what you want is a following of the right people who are actually going to buy something, and being very specific about, like you say, what that front end offer is, lead magnet, sales offer, or whatever it is a crucial thing to get the right people on the list, as it is to get the right people in your following, because it's just very little point unless you want to boost your own ego to just have numbers for numbers' sake, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's an example. Like, so I've gotten mentioned a few times there's a couple like Vietnamese copywriting teachers, gurus, whatever you want to call it. And I've seen these videos because I always have a question when people join like an autoresponder. It's like, hey, how'd you find out about me? So people will be like, oh, I found you from this person's channel. So I'll go and like these videos, they're all in Vietnamese, and then I'll see like they'll be referencing my name, my website, and like showing my website, and I guess commenting on good things I'm doing, whatever. And they're like, oh, this is a guy you should follow. So like every day I get 20 or 30, and it's always like Vietnamese college kids. Now here's the thing, like even if it was American college kids, like college kids don't have money for courses. They're not going to pay me, $10,000, $20,000 for a copywriting project, for an email marketing project, right? Like it's a very select clientele who A is going to be interested in that, and B who's going to be able to afford that. So, and then you add in the currency conversion, like when I get 20 sometimes 30 of those college kids a day, from other countries coming in, and like, yes, so my list is growing, right? But like if they're never going to convert because they can't, because there's a currency conversion issue, and there's obviously the fact that like when I was in college, I made $35 a night as a nightclub bouncer. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't buying digital courses, like I wasn't buying print newsletters, like I was
Yeah, yeah.
buying food for the week and like that, and beer, and that was about it, right? So that's the thing, like yeah, subscribers aren't hard.
Mhm.
The right subscribers take a little bit of work though. And that's why I like your stuff so much, because that's what you teach. You teach about like it's not about the numbers. There are people with bigger followings than you. They probably
Mhm.
don't make as much money as you. There's people with hundreds of thousands of followers. And I know this because I've worked a lot with e-commerce brand owners, and we'll use influencers for marketing. And sometimes these people will promote just for free product. Like we don't even have to pay them anything. Like we'll send them a product which has a landed cost of $20, right? And then they'll promote to hundreds of thousands of people. So it costs us $20 to get the reach and the impressions, and they're over the moon because they got something for free, because they're working so hard to get anything, let alone even get paid. Like just to get free product is like amazing for them, And it's
Mhm.
not everyone. There's definitely people out there who, super high level people who might require retaining. But like I just know the landscape because I've seen behind the scenes from every single angle. So it's not about the size, it's about the quality.
For sure, for sure. So next question then, I guess, is a logical progression from we got our list, people are coming to that list, and then they're going through, in most cases, some form of automated sequence after downloading a lead magnet or purchasing a low end offer or whatever it is. Do you have like some principles or a structure for how you start that relationship with that new lead to try and convert them as fast as possible? Do you do certain things in an automation to try and speed up that nurture process?
Yeah, I mean, when I think through automations, like I'm a big believer, like my advertising marketing philosophy is very much based on like belief systems.
Mhm.
Because what I've realized over the years is that more so than anything else, it's the chain of beliefs that someone has in their mind, which is going to make them either a good customer or a bad customer, right? So like as an example I like to use all the time, right? Like if someone is convinced that the only way to get healthy and lose fat and to live an optimized life is to be ketogenic, and some people love that, and that's totally fine, right? But like if that's their belief system, and you are, let's say, a bodybuilding coach, and your diet plan consists of like 6 meals of chicken and rice and a lot of cardio, and like the old school bodybuilding thing. And listen, both of those approaches can work, right? Like I'm not necessarily saying one's better than the other. I'm just using it as an example. Like if you're a keto person and that's your belief, you're not going to buy the other person's program because it conflicts with the beliefs that you hold in your mind about the right way to get to the result that you want, right? So like if someone is frustrated and they're looking for a new solution, what you then have to do is you have to build a bridge from the old belief to the new belief. And what you have to do is you have to identify the old belief and say, people think X, and you might be thinking X, but that's actually wrong. The reason why it's wrong is because of blah, 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 blah. Maybe there's a story that you're going to use as the vehicle to change the belief, and then you lead them to the new belief that they need to have. The reason why keto is not great is because carbs are the things that actually help you build muscle because of insulin and blah, 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 and whatever, whatever, right? And there was this famous bodybuilder who actually went from keto to traditional bodybuilding thing, whatever, like whatever the story is, right?
Mhm.
Like you find a story, use a story from your own life, and that bridges the gap for people. So what I like to do with autoresponders is say, what are the key beliefs that a new customer has to have if they're going to be a good customer for me, right? And then what's going to happen through that autoresponder is the people who are already share some of those beliefs, maybe they share half of the beliefs they need, or the people who have an open mind and are looking for a new solution, they're going to be converted over to your side. They're going to buy, or at least stick around long enough to be able to buy, right? The other people whose belief systems clash and they just have their heels dug in, they were never going to buy from you anyway, and they're going to see themselves out and probably unsubscribe. And that's okay, right? Because the autoresponder, all the emails, everything you're doing is a filtering mechanism to, you bring a lot of people into the front, the right people stay, the wrong people go. So with the autoresponders, it's always like, how do I just tell stories or do belief shifting type emails that show people, demonstrate to people that my method is superior and that it's right for them because of XYZ reasons.
Hmm. And you mentioned there about writing stories and doing that belief shift work in that automation. You've got a unique style when it comes to your emails. Like a lot of the emails that you write are funny, kind of a little bit, sometimes a little bit off the wall. Like I always remember the sequence of emails you sent when you're promoting the Moat, that your latest book, where you've just got the celebrities with the book in their hand. I found that hilarious, just like reading through every single one of those. Like, and that's like just a quite an off the wall kind of idea. So, first of all, I guess it's a two-part question is first of all, like, how did you actually come up with, or not come up with, or how do you actually get your own style and voice into your emails? And then how do you actually come up with the wacky off the wall ideas and the stories and things like that?
So like for me, what I realized with like I just love to joke around and have fun. And not everyone's like that, and that's okay. You don't have to be like you don't have that's the big thing is like you don't have to be whoever's listening, you don't have to be like me. You just have to be like yourself. And like that's just always who I've been. So part of like finding your voice and that is it's a lot of reps. It's a lot of reps combined with like stepping into the realization that people are going to like you for you, and not everyone's going to like you, but the right people will like you if you just be yourself. And like most people, this is like the hardest thing in the world to accept this fact that A, not everyone's going to like you, so you shouldn't try to make everyone like you. And B, the more of yourself that you are and the more of yourself that you show, the more the right people are going to stay. Because, like, for example, like, well, if I talk about like stories from when I was a wrestler, I'll have a bunch of people be like, oh, I do BJJ. I didn't know you wrestled. Or, oh, I was a college athlete too. Or my kids wrestle. And like, I've had a lot of people who, because I've shared stories about that, which have oftentimes nothing to do with like, email marketing, they're like, wow, this guy is like me, or we have something in common, like a friendship. Like you think about an offline friendship, it's like, well, you're probably friends with people who have a lot of similar interests. Right? Like you're probably not,
Mhm.
like if you're a hardcore carnivore, you're not hanging out with a bunch of vegans. Like again, it's called belief systems, called common interests, whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
So what I always tell people too is like people are always afraid to do this and be themselves. But what I always, because they say, well, what if people like talk shit about me? And what I always tell them is, I say, listen, right now, as we're having this conversation, there's someone out there, someone you probably know and love even, who's talking shit about you right now. And you have no idea, and there's nothing you can do about it. And whether you write this email or not, that person's going to talk shit about you. And there's probably 10 other people who are talking shit about you right now. Whether it's people you knew from school, people from college, people who you used to work with, someone right now at this very moment is talking shit about you. Now that we've gotten that out of the way,
Go write that email.
write whatever you want
Yeah.
because like it's their greatest fear. Like I'm gonna say something, someone's gonna make fun of me. Like people are already making fun of you. You know what I mean? Like, and everyone, like people didn't like Mother Teresa. Like there's always someone who's not gonna like you, and that's okay. Except that it's already happening, whether you do it or not. And then to say, okay, well, if it's already happening, it's if it happens one more time, I don't know. Like who cares? You know what I mean? Like, do you want to make money? Do you want to build a good business? Do you want to live the life that you want to live? Like, there's always gonna be people who don't like you. But for every person who doesn't like you, there might be 10 or 100 people who love you and love your stuff. So, like, which one's going to win out? The one person who's a shithead who's never going to give you any money, or the person who does want to give you money, who loves your stuff, and who's going to help support the life that you want to live? It's like easy trade, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, perfectly right. And so that, what about the actual the idea itself? So I mentioned the one with the moat and stuff like that, but you got some even like more crazy ones. So how do you go from random thought to email that actually links to something that I want to sell? And that could be like you say, you do stories about wrestling, you do stories about daily life, you do stories about whatever. Like how do you go from weird idea to buy a course or investing mentorship or whatever it is?
I think there's always a lesson. There's a lesson you can learn from everything that happens in your life, you know? So part of it is just like picking through your life experiences. And if you start with something that's interesting and funny and something that people can relate to, or something that'll make people laugh, there's like sometimes like with the book launch one when I had like Kim Kardashian holding the book, and then who else did I have?
John
I had
Kennedy.
LeBron James, I had JFK. Yeah, I did a black and white picture with JFK, reading the moat, right? And so I was just thinking through like what would be the funniest, like who were famous celebrities reading, like holding up books. I had like Reese Witherspoon, Reese's Book Club, Oprah Winfrey. I was like, wow, I'm in Oprah's book club. Look at me, like, and obviously it's all fake. I'm doing horrible photoshops. But I was like, everyone could be like, oh, it's a book about whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'd done some emails like that, but I'm like, how do I make this different? And like what I
Mhm.
found is like it's not important. Like it's always important to be better, obviously, but like everyone's saying that they're better. What's everyone not saying? It's like this is why I'm different, right? This is why I'm
Mhm.
fun. This is why I'm interesting. And like especially for the stuff that I'm selling, the stuff that I'm selling is very expensive. And similar to your business, like it's not like you're not selling $5 ebooks out here. You're not selling
Mhm.
$10 widgets, right? Like it's expensive stuff, right? Like it requires investment. So the first thing that's going to have to happen is someone that's going to have to say, I like that guy or I like that girl. Like I like that
Mhm.
person, right? Like I like them. There's something about them. I like them, right? Then they're open. And then their defenses fall a little bit because, you're not going to work with someone you don't like, right? So like if I can make people laugh, then it's always going to be easier to convert them. So like when I just come up with these crazy ideas, I just say like, I think about them. I think about them sitting on the toilet, scrolling through their emails first thing in the morning, and like they're probably like internet marketer number one, internet marketer number two, internet marketer number three, and they're just scrolling number four, number five, number six, number 10, number 20, right? And like they're
Yeah.
all saying the same, some variation of the same shit, right? So I'm like, well, how do I make something that's so different that they're like, wow, that was funny as hell. I definitely need to read the next one this guy has because maybe it'll be something else that's funny or something else that's interesting or something else that makes me think about the world in a different way. And like, so really my whole strategy is just like, how do I think differently? And then I always find a way to relate it back, right? Because sometimes I don't. Sometimes I say, hey, I just thought this was a funny ass story, it has nothing to do with marketing, but just go buy my book or go buy this thing because you like it and it'll help you. And like sometimes those make sales. So
Mhm. Yeah, and I think like it's which course you've got a course where is it there's a course about transitions, I think. Is that a course you have?
yeah.
There's like a lesson, I think it's in the very first lesson or the very first module of that course where you talk about like a segue process where you're kind of like finding two, maybe just like pick two random objects and then you'll find like what's common between these two things. Is it like they're both black, made of metal, both have a screen, both connect me to the outside world? And that's I found like was a good exercise for me to go through is just how many like random connections can I make between seemingly inanimate things and then the process of saying well how do I connect this thing that happened today to that is so much easier because you're already like subconsciously looking out for all these things anyway. And I found that part of one of your courses one of the more the things that I use every day is that thing of that okay segue, how do we kind of find the commonality between all those different sorts of things? And that's kind of like that's one of the things that stuck with me that I use every single day.
Yeah, I mean, you have to stick out, like, and that's the biggest thing is like getting noticed first, right? Because again, like, there's just so many people doing whatever you're selling. There's someone else selling something very similar for cheaper, or
Mhm.
making it more convenient or has better distribution. So it's like, well, how do you win? So you win by being different. And with life, like business, everyone's like, there's business and there's personal life. And it's like, well, for a lot of us, it's really intertwined. So like when we bring in our lives into our business, it just makes you stand out so much more because you're real and you're human. You're not standing in front of a fucking rented, Lamborghini or a private jet. Um, like it's just like you're a real person. You're just like me. And like I think that oftentimes that wins out. It's like maybe you sat, everyone wants to go bigger with like the promise, but like really it's about the connection and the proof and the differentiation that are always more important. Like the promise is always important. Like people need to know what they're going to get, but like there's this nuclear arms race that people do in marketing where they're like, I have to be 100 times. You're 10x, I'm 100x. You're 10,000, I'm 100,000. Like there's always like you have a Lamborghini, I have a private jet. It's like okay, well like Most of that stuff's bullshit because that's what happens is like you have to stretch the truth or just fabricate the truth so much to keep up in that arms race. And like you can compete that way, and some people do, right? But
Mhm.
some people just compete more by, the moat that you have around your own business is you and your personality and your personal brand, right? And it's like who you are because there's enough people in the world that share your common interests and appreciate your perspective on life. And everyone's looking to be led. That's the big thing
Mhm.
too. It's like Dan Kennedy has this quote. He said, people are walking around life with their umbilical cord in their hand, looking for somewhere to plug it in. It's a great quote. But like even like well put together people, like they all have mentors. They all have people they learn from. They have books they read. They have people that they follow. And sometimes it's just that they're voracious learners, but a lot of times it's like they just want to make sure that they're learning about how to achieve the life that they want to live.
Mhm.
So I think we're all doing that. I think every human's doing this, especially in our space and the space that we operate in business. Like it's not easy. You can't do it alone. So you need mentors, you need models, you need experts, you need consultants, you need people who inspire you. And like that's where the content and the emails comes in, right? It's like you just need to show up for your people.
Mm. And speaking of mentors, obviously, we've been working together for a year now, and for me and my business, it's been the most financially successful year I've had. So I'm all for good mentors. One of the things that you've kind of like drilled into me over the last 12 months is the concept, you call it like whales and minnows, right? Whales being the clients who are going to be your best clients, are going to pay you the most money, they're going to be the most loyal versus chasing people who are going to buy the $5 ebook and that's it. So for the people who are listening who don't understand the concept, like how do you set things up so that your marketing is tailored towards that whale rather than the minnow?
Yeah, so like an easy thing you could do is like you can go into Stripe or PayPal or whatever, payment system you use, and you say, who spent the most money with me? And you could look at like who are the top 10% of my customers. And like for most people, their customer file is small enough. I have like over 5,000 customers. So for me, if you look at top 10%, that's like 500 names, right? Or if you look at top 5%, that's 250 names. So even for me, it's still manageable, right? If you have 100,000 customers, again, you can use software. But if you have a smaller business where you have less than 5,000 customers or even 10,000 customers, um, you probably recognize these names because they bought from you, you've interacted with them before. So it's like, well, who are these people? What are the commonalities between these people? What is the source? Where do these people come from? Like, what was I doing to attract these people? Do I know? Can I find out? Right? Oh, did this person sign up from a Facebook ad? Oh, they signed up from this one particular lead magnet I ran on Facebook. And actually, all my best people come from there. So maybe I should use that lead magnet again, right? Like a lot of it is just like forensic, analysis of your own database and seeing, who are these people? Did I like working with them? Like, A, did they spend a lot of money? B, did they repurchase a lot? C, do I genuinely enjoy them as customers? D, do I want more of them? Where did they come from? How did I get them? How did I sell them? What was their life cycle like? And like, it takes a little bit of work to do this, but because I've seen this in my own list, I have people who spent 5, 10, 15, $20,000 with me. And then I have people who, I would do experiments. I'd be like, let me take my, book funnel that's normally $10. Let me make it on sale for $1 and you get hundreds of sales. But like what I found was a lot of those people never bought anything else. They came for the $1 book. I even had a few people ask for refunds. I was like, it's a fucking dollar. Like you need a refund for $1. Like whatever. Hey, here's your dollar back, asshole. Like whatever, right? But a lot of these people, I just noticed this. I didn't know this when I was going through it, but like looking back in hindsight and doing these kind of analysis, I'm like, all these people who bought these $1 books, they never bought anything else. They never really escalated anything else. So like yeah, I made the sale because everyone had like, oh well, an existing customer is always going to be more likely to buy. And yeah, in general, that's true. But as long as there's some congruency, like if you're trying to sell something for 10,000, but then you have a buyer who bought something for $1 that was discounted down to $1 just because you tried this crazy ass promo, that person's not going to escalate. So like, is there even a point to doing that style of a promo, or is there a point to saying, fuck it, we're going to scrap that and we're only going to focus on doing the type of campaigns that get the $10,000 people, right?
Mm.
And again, it will be a filtering mechanism for your list, right? Because the people who are never going to buy that stuff are going to leave, but the people who are in the market for that kind of stuff are going to stay. And it's very important to do this because you'll get pulled in different directions. And like your audience will take every bit of you. like they will pull and pull and pull and always ask for more and more and more. And like I've seen this with surveys. Like I'll run surveys sometimes and I'll be like, what do you need help with? People are like, I need help getting clients because I have a lot of copywriters on my list. I'm like, I got a fucking book. I got Email Copy Academy. I got Get More Clients Masterclass. I got one person agency. I got maybe two other courses on getting clients. Like
Mhm.
I've written 100 articles on getting clients. I've done podcasts on getting clients. I was like, I've said everything there is to say on this topic. You know what I mean? But like, so if I use that one data point as the quote unquote North Star, I'm going to run to the rocks. I'm going to run my ship right into the rocks. Right. So, and I look at those people who are interested in the client getting stuff and like high refunders, sometimes they dispute. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll steal the course. I saw my brother sent me today. There's some fake account selling my client acquisition book. They pirated it. I'm like, it's $20. Like, what are you going to sell it for a third of that? He's like, okay, whatever, right? But like, it's so like that doesn't happen with my courses oriented towards business owners. It always happens with the courses oriented towards copywriters. So like, do I want more of those headaches in my life?
Mhm.
Again, I love copywriters. That's what I am at heart, and I many customers and friends who are those people. But there's definitely not all of them buy everything. Like the people who buy the higher level business stuff, they're always better customers than the people who want the $1, the $20 thing, and they bitch and complain about it. You know what I mean? So it's very important to look at your file and understand that not all of your customers are created equal. And like you're going to grow the business by growing the amount of whales. I got this from Drew Sanaki, who's CEO of Postpilot, very smart guy, very smart e-commerce operator. He's a guy who's like turned around a number of nine-figure businesses, like super smart dude. That's where I learned the concept from. And it's true, like when you focus on the people who are your best customers, who spend the most money, who buy the most often, and you build all of the marketing around those people and say, everyone else, if you want to come along for the ride, that's fine, you can, but I'm not going to cater my business to you. Everything's going to start growing.
Yeah, and it reminds me of I think it was maybe September, October time. I tried a 14-day free trial of my Social Mavericks membership site. And the initial like sales were great. Like people coming in, lots of people doing the trial and so on and so forth. And then even the people that actually then went on to continue their subscription, they were actually the people that lasted the least amount of time in terms of retention. The people who had made the decision to say, you know what, this is right for me, I want to pay full price from the get-go, they've always been the people that hang around the longest. And I quickly pulled that offer after maybe like 4 or 6 weeks because it was just like a high level of churn, and it's more of a headache than anything to see that kind of revolving around. And so like I went back to those sorts of things, and a little bit like the again like conversations we've had about the whales and things like that. Like I've got people who are paying 12.50 a month for my mentorship program that hang around for a year, 18 months, even longer. And then it's like, why don't I just get more of those people?
Mm-hmm.
It's like rather than try and sell. I mean, I don't sell any like ebooks for a five or anything like that, but I could spend my life trying to sell my $15 book, which I make maybe $6 on after Amazon has, taken everything that I'm worth. I could just like do that, but how many $6 books have I got to sell to get the same as a 12.50 a month client? And that kind of like mindset shift for me was a big like turning point of like set everything up to get the people that are going to be the most loyal and pay the most money, and like you say, the others still come along for the ride because there are other products and stuff like that that you have sitting around the fringes. So I mean that again, another lesson I've learned working with you, super important as well. um
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I'm
no,
just
go
one
for
more thing. Like it's hard. It's hard when like because what happens is like, I know what happened with me is like I started getting traction and like I didn't want to say no to anything because like oh my God, it's working and now more stuff's working and it's like I have this course and that course and this other thing and it's like everything feels great, right? But like it will feel great for a while, but you won't see the problems bubbling up underneath in the business until
yeah
6, 12 months from now. And a lot of that is because you've neglected to focus on the right kind of people. And everyone does this. Like I've talked with huge eight-figure, multiple eight-figure businesses, and they do this too. Like it's not just a problem for guys like us. It's everywhere, right? Like this is the hardest thing to do is just keep your eyes on the North Star, right? That's why there's all these management trainings and management books because like let's orient the business towards the shit that matters. Like that's what that whole industry is, right? And it's tough. It's tough because you get distracted and it's not easy what we do, you know.
Mhm.
But it is worth it. And the thing is, like, if you stay in the game, continue to learn, continue to improve, and just focus on these 1% improvements, it compounds over time. So, it's hard. It's definitely, if it was easy, everyone would be a millionaire. You know what I mean? Like that's the
Yeah.
thing. Everyone be a millionaire with a six pack and a Lamborghini in the garage. Like everyone would, but like everyone doesn't, and there's a reason why.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So I'm going to wrap up with two more questions. First one is AI related. So I know kind of like we both dabbled in AI to various different degrees. What's your view on AI specifically related to writing emails? There'll be a bunch of people listening to this podcast who some will be good at email, some will be running away from email because it's too hard, they don't know where to start. Like, is AI going to help people write better emails for marketing, or in your opinion, is it not quite there yet? Do you have to have some skill? Like, where do you sit on that AI and email?
I think your AI is there. I
Quick,
think
quick plug.
yeah, quick plug, greater. No, I mean when you showed it to me the first time, I was like, wow, out of all the tools I've seen, this one's fucking cool. And
Mhm.
I have one too, and it's pretty solid for emails. It's based on my email copy academy system. So, um, I think if you find that's where I think we're at with AI. It's like I think if you use ChatGPT, like it's okay for certain things. Um, but context is always key with these. Like for me, like I use AI sometimes. I use a lot for like I don't want to say research, but like I'll be like, what are the all the objections someone could have to this type of product, right? And I'll be like, are there any more? Are there any more? Are there any more? And I'll get like 40 objections. And I'll be like, all right, did I counter every one of these? So these are the main ones. And then like I'll combine that with like just things I know about the market from my own independent research and like find the Venn diagram crossover, right? But with some of the tools, like what some people do, it's like we've been through this big AI hype cycle. Like when it first came out, everyone was like, "This is the end." People were like commenting on my YouTube videos, like, "You're gonna be out of fucking work 6 months, 12 months tops." And I'm like, "Okay, well, here I am, motherfucker. It's been 16 months later." You know what I mean? Like, so, like, I think it's if it's a tool that helps you win, you use it, and that's my philosophy with anything. Like, if it's going to give you an advantage and help you win, so like, if you suck at emails and you're terrible at it, get a fucking AI tool and use it. You know what I mean? And then like start sending, see what the feedback is, see what you need to tweak, and focus on 1% improvements. For me to use a tool like every day for writing, I'm too fast to use an AI tool, and I am the exception to the norm. So like 99.9% of people, you're not like me, you're not going to be able to do what I do. And it's not like me talking shit. It's just that like this is my zone of genius activity. Like I could sit down and pump out, a week's worth of emails in under an hour, maybe 45 minutes. And I do this every week pretty much. You know what I mean? Like it's what I'm good at. It's like for me to actually go and mess around with an AI tool would actually slow me down. I think most people can get to the point where they can get pretty fast with it. Like there's some things like if it's like a cart close email, if it's like a, you know, product benefit email, like, yeah, AI is great for that stuff, right? If it's like, hey, I was at the soccer field with my kid the other day and this funny thing happened, it's like I could use AI to write a story about that scenario, but the AI tool wasn't there. I was, and I saw what happened, and I have my own unique perspective. So, like, for certain things, like, yeah, it's good, but for certain things, it can't do it. Again, it's not saying it can't write a story about a hypothetical scenario, but I'm going to get that story, and I'm going to have to be like, yeah, but this didn't happen, or it happened this way, or actually, my takeaway was this and not this. So I'm going to have to go and edit it. So for things like that, I'll just sit down and write it myself because it's almost faster for me to do that than to go and edit it. But for like social posts, I mean, there's a lot of different types of content, right? Like not
Mhm.
everything is a personal story. Sometimes things are um historical stories, right? Like you're telling a story about, I tell stories about like Napoleon or Alexander the Great, and like, yeah, I could let an AI tool do that for me because it'll pull the information in a second, and then I'll have to go Googling for the information to pack it into the story, right? Or if it's like a product benefit thing, there's a lot of different uses for it, and I like it. I think it's always just context dependent. But like if you're afraid of emailing, fucking use an AI tool. Like just do it and get the benefit of sending emails to your list, right? And you'll start to improve. Because the thing is, like, if you suck at emailing, it's going to like people are like, well, what if the AI is not great? I'm like, well, you're not great either. So like, just use the freaking tool, see what the response looks like, and say, well, how do I make this better tomorrow? How do I make it better next week? Right. And then
Mhm.
maybe it's a combination of you editing the outputs or changing the inputs or whatever it is. But I'm a very big believer in using every weapon that you have available to win the battle and not having a specific ideology about, well, for whatever ethical reason, or, I'm not gonna, it's like you're in a war. When you're in a war, you're gonna fight to win. You know what I mean? Like, so, and the war is not you versus AI, the war is you versus everyone else in your industry. So like if you have something that can give you a leg up, then absolutely use it.
Perfect. Awesome. So last question is, well, basically, how do people find out more about what you do? Maybe join your email list. Like, where should we send people to buy your courses? Like, I bought a bunch of your courses, pretty much almost all of them. Then the newsletter, then the books, then the mentorship. So, where should we send people to go through that same
Yeah, you
experience?
you can go to orz.co. That's orzy.co. That's like my main site, my main hub. There's a few opt-ins there. You can get a issue my print newsletter there. Or you can follow me on Twitter at Chris Orzy, ChrisOrzy. I'm always hanging out there talking about shit, making jokes, and offending people. So yeah.
It's always good. Awesome, man. Appreciate you having you on the show. Awesome tips for everybody, and no doubt I'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks so much, Simon.